Hey everyone, so what was it like to read Book 3, The Dragon Reborn, after watching Season 2 of the Wheel of Time TV series? In a word, it was fantastic. So I'm going to give a very quick spoiler-free review, and then I'm going to go in depth with a bunch of random thoughts I had while reading the book, and then I'll have a brief look at the new maps that are in this book, and then finally see if any of my unanswered questions from the last video have been answered in this book, and what new questions have arisen. So I was very excited to read this book because a lot of people feel that this is where the Wheel of Time series comes into its own, which it kind of did, but at the same time, I did feel that it was just more of the same of Book 2, which is fine. I mean, I really love Jordan's prose. It's very cozy and very enjoyable to read. But I just didn't feel it was all that different. Apparently, Book 4 is where it really starts changing, so I'm looking forward to that. In this one, Perrin, Mat, and Egwene get a lot more limelight, and Mat in particular is just such an enjoyable character to read about. The plot does take a while to find its footing, but it eventually does find its kind of driving force. The only thing I would say about Jordan is I think he could do better endings. The endings of all the first 3 books have a sort of vagueness about them, and they're all quite similar in certain ways. But that's okay. It's still definitely a 4-star book for me. Okay, we're going into spoiler territory now, so if you haven't read it, don't keep watching. And basically, this really is just a bunch of random thoughts I had while reading the book, so they may be a bit disjointed. The first 100 pages is a little bit slow going, similar to actually the second book, where the first 80 pages I seem to recall is a little bit slow, and then finally there's a bunch of action and things really take off. Same sort of thing seemed to happen in this book, and we finally find out where things are headed, which is basically this place on the cover. And the start is all from Perrin's point of view, which is a bit different. At one point, Min sees some things in Perrin's future, and of course that made me think of, in the TV show, him finding Avienda in the cage, which we'll talk about later. There's finally a mention of Swan Shonche growing up with a fisherman for a father, which obviously I saw in the TV show already. Wow, Nynaeve really goes for that braid in this book. When the girls are being dealt with by the Merlin seat, it gets mentioned at least 8 times in the space of 30 pages. Someone has run the stats, and apparently this book gets the record for the most amount of braid tugging in the entire series. So we know where Rand and the others are heading in this book, towards the Stone of Tyr in Ilion and Kalendor. But finally, a page around 180, we find out what's happening with the girls, i.e. they're going to be hunting out the Black Arger in the tower. Finally, Mat gets healed and gets a visit from Selene. Funnily enough, if you look up Selene in the glossary, it tells you that she is in fact Lanfear, which I knew from the TV series, but in the context of the books, it wasn't apparent that she is one and the same. It was interesting to learn that Rand and Mat's fathers had been to Tar Valon looking for them. That doesn't show up in the TV series. Now, an interesting note on dates, which I don't think has kind of come up anywhere in the books explicitly. Egwene visits Viren, and she says how the last dreamer died 473 years ago, and the glossary mentions that she died in 526 of the new era, so that makes the current year 999, which is kind of a rather auspicious year, seeing as the next year will be the year 1000. Okay, it's now been 100 pages back at Tar Valon, and to tell you the truth, not a lot has happened. It could probably happen pretty quickly if it was done in the TV show. Basically, the girls get attacked by a zombie, Mat finally gets healed, and there's a whole lot of suspicion from everyone. So Egwene goes through the archers, and that was really interesting, particularly the bit What Will Be, where she becomes the Merlin seat and of the Green Arger. So you have to wonder, is this going to happen or is it not? Shiriam at one point describes the Argers, and in particular, how they're almost defined by their relation to men. There's the Green Arger that kind of love men, there's the Red Arger that absolutely hate men, and then there's all the ones in between. Well, hey, Mat has very good fighting skills. He shows what you can do with a stick. I'm not liking how Celine just seems to be appearing and vanishing. It just seems a bit too convenient. Okay, the Black Aja are all on their way to Tyr, which really ramps up the fact that the climax, we know the climax is probably going to be there, but now it's just everyone's going to be there. And later the Merlin seat confirms with the girls that the stuff they found was all just planted as bait. Oh, and now Matt is escaping Tar Valon and travelling to Camelin to deliver Elaine's letter. And getting very lucky. And here's Tom again. It is so fun reading Matt's storyline. And now we're back to Perrin and the rest chasing Rand and always being a step behind. And finally we get the scene of Perrin rescuing the Aiel man from the cage. And that led to a funny expectation because in the TV show, it's a woman. So as I was reading it, I was thinking, he's rescuing this person and then he's going to find out it's actually a woman, but it wasn't. It actually was a man. I'm not sure why they felt the need to change that for the TV show. And then there's killing of White Cloaks and now the group is off down the river and that Aiel man heads off somewhere in a totally different direction. So back to the other group, and now there's a new woman called Zareen who's a horn hunter, and I'm thinking, what's her deal gonna be? Okay, so now Perrin has this dream sequence involving Lanfear and Balsamon, and I'm kind of finding these a little bit tedious because I'm never quite sure, is this something I should be paying attention to? I kind of think I should, but then is some of it just complete nonsense and inconsequential? And then finally we get a bit of Rand, and he's going completely mental and killing a woman and 11 guards. Are they supposed to be bad, or is he just, completely unhinged? It wasn't quite clear to me. Hey, we finally encounter Avienda and the other Aiel maidens, but it's actually Egwene and their group that meet them. And then we're back to Matt, who's finally arrived at Erangel, and there are all these people fleeing from Cairhien, and it's not quite clear what's happening over there, except that there's a civil war, but it's never really explained, the details, which obviously we'll find out, hopefully. Oh yeah, and there's a nice throwback to the firework place in book 2. So Perrin and Moraine and the others finally get to Ilion, and Zareen convinces Moraine that she should be allowed to tag along with them. And then they get attacked by grey men. And it's not really clear to me how or where grey men get created, and what do they get out of the bargain? And then Moraine heads off alone, and I don't know where or why or what she's doing. And then she comes back and announces that Samael is in charge in Ilion, though it's really unclear how she found that out. And adding to the mystery, they head off and they're chased by these dark hounds, and Moraine uses this forbidden magic, and it's not clear how she knows it or why it's forbidden, and it's actually not even clear particularly what it actually did. So Matt and Tom finally reach Camelin, and there's a nice throwback to the first book with Rand climbing the wall and falling into the palace garden. So Matt uses that knowledge because he can't get in the front gate, and so he remembers what Rand said, and so he goes and climbs the wall and manages to get in that way. I thought that was nice. And so he finally delivers the message, and then we're introduced to this new plot thread. The Queen is obviously kind of enthralled by this new dude, and this dude wants to have Elaine killed. So there are definitely starting to be more and more plot threads. So of course Matt heads off to Tyr to help the girls. Yay, everyone's going to Tyr. And meanwhile the girls arrive in Tyr, and they hide out with the Wisdom, and they hire a thief taker to find the Black Ajas. And then Matt arrives, and he goes searching for the girls, and he accidentally kills Komar, the guy that was hunting for the girls, but in his dying breath he mentions that there are others hunting them. And then Perrin and the others arrive, so everyone's in Tyr. And he decides to go to a smithy for some R&R, as you do, and he gets a hammer. And somehow Moraine finds out that there's another Forsaken in Tyr. I'm unclear how she keeps finding out this information. It's never told in the book how she does. I'm not sure if that's just convenient plotting by Jordan, or whether he actually has an idea of how she obtained that information. And whether we find out how she did that or not, I don't know. Anyway, she and Lan head into the Stone of Tyr. And then the girls get captured, and then Matt takes Tom to the Wisdom because he has a cough, so he's going there for a remedy. And then the link-up gets made, and now he's off to enter the Stone of Tear as well. And now I realize I'm just kind of recapping the story, but let's keep going. So now we go back to Perrin, and Zareen triggers a trap, and Perrin chases her into the dreamland. Meanwhile, Matt is kind of going over the rooftops and encounters a bunch of Aiel warriors, and finally gets to use his fireworks to blow a hole in the wall, which was cool. Finally, we get a bit of Rand point of view in the Stone of Tear. Then there's a bit where we go back to the girls who are imprisoned, but they manage to use the dreamland and use the one power in the dream world, which is interesting. And then Rand finally gets Kalendor. Woohoo! That's of course with the help of Moraine, who takes out Bilal. And then Rand goes into dreamland chasing Balsamon. Is this guy ever gonna die? Then Matt frees the girls, Perrin frees Zareen, and then Rand kills Balsamon. And I'm like, this is the third time. Is he dead now? Or is he just gonna keep coming back? And then we get the last chapter, which is a discussion amongst all the main characters. But the whole time I was reading that chapter, I was thinking, where's Rand? And finally the connection is made that Balsamon is Ishamael, which I already knew, kind of, because that had been spoiled for me anyway. But yep, finally found that out. And then finally, we get the introduction of a new character, Berelain from Mayene. Don't know anything about her, but obviously it's going to be something in book 4. So that's the book. Brief note on the glossary. It's always worth reading all the entries in the glossary. I've already mentioned the connection about Selene being Lanfear. That was in the glossary. But a really interesting point is Moraine. In the glossary, it says she's of House Damodred, and that she grew up in the royal palace in Cairhien. I'm fairly sure that wasn't mentioned anywhere in the narrative in the first 3 books. Obviously it comes out in the TV show, but I found that interesting that it doesn't get mentioned anywhere except in the glossary. So maybe that's just preparing you for book 4. So talking about the TV show, there actually wasn't that much in terms of plot from this book in the TV series in season 2. There were a few small things, but not a lot. And I've heard that they're not going to be doing much of this book in the future. And I'll tell you what wasn't in the book that's in the TV show. That ridiculous behavior of Moraine being nasty to Lan and to everyone else. I find that really annoying. Thankfully it's not in the book. Now just a brief comment on the maps. Obviously we get to see a bit of Ilion and Tyr, and we finally get a zoomed in map of Tar Valon, which is pretty cool. It's a pretty nice map. I'm not sure it's used all that much, really, but it's nice always to get some more detail. So that makes me happy. So, let's go over the questions from my previous video. Where is Selene? Well, we found that out. The result of the civil war in Cairhien, we still really don't know what the outcome of that will be in terms of who will gain power. The huge statue outside Cairhien, we don't know if that's going to ever get used. Will Loyal get home to Steading Shanghai? Don't know. Why can't the true source be used in the Steading? Don't know. What does Sungwood do? Well, in the second season, we actually saw Loyal doing some singing to wood, and it seemed to grow. But still don't really know what that means. Like, does it get some special properties? I think that's unanswered. When will they visit the Aiel Waste? Still don't know. Is Leandrin of the Black Aja? Yes. Definitely. What will happen to Leandrin? Well, that kind of wasn't answered. Will Elaine marry Perrin? Don't know. Will Pat and Fane go to Eamon's Field? Still don't know. I think we don't know. What's Bael Doman's future? Don't know. What will happen to High Lady Suroth? Don't know. Will Matt get cured? Yes. He finally got cured. Although it took till page 200. Some other questions about the Seanchan. Will we see them? Will we see the other Hyline or whatever they are? Still unanswered. Will they go across the ocean? Maybe. Will the horn get used again? No, it wasn't. How did Moraine know to go to Tomenhead? I think we'll never find that out, so I'm going to take that one off the list. So, new questions. I'd really like to know how the Angreal, emphasis on the al. I'd really like to know how the Angreal were made. And will anyone ever figure out how to make more? What's happening when 2 terangrials interact? So there's the bit where Elaine goes through the arches and there's obviously something happening there, but it's not quite clear. So hopefully we'll find that out at some point. So The Black Archers, there's 13, Leandrin and the 12 others. So, are they going to be like the 13 Dreadlords? Will Egwene marry Rand? And will she join the Green Archer? And will she become the Emerlent seat? I've made a note to come back to page 290 where Egwene is thinking over her dreams, and there's a whole bunch of possible things that could happen to Rand, Mat and Perrin. It's that dream thing again where I'm not sure what I should ignore or what will actually come about. How did the Aiel fail the Aes Sedai? Why is it called the Threefold Land? What is balefire and why is it forbidden? Will we ever find out what happens in the travels of Jaime Farstrider? I want to know. So I hope you enjoyed that kind of rambling take on Book 3. I'll see you in the next one. See ya.